All right, everybody, welcome to episode 15 of the Actionable Alignment Podcast. I'm here with one of my very first work besties. It's Matt Walsh from One Playground. He is a personal trainer. He's currently working online and face to face at One Playground. He's been in the industry for over a decade now, and he's extremely passionate about coaching and educating guys to get in the best shape of their lives and become their most strongest and confident selves. Matt Walsh, welcome to the pod. How are you?
Good, thank you. How are you?
Good, thank you. We're living, we're breathing, we're here.
That is it. And we're having some fun, making some content, helping some people. It's good fun.
Exactly. Now, tell me, in terms of your origin story,
hmm
I want to know from country boy to city slicker, okay?
Yeah. There's
um,
there's a song coming soon.
Seriously, we've got to make a little country song for this. Um, I
Well, I
want to
have a
know,
cardboard cutout of myself now. Have you seen that?
oh my gosh, I saw it. I absolutely love it. I need to come in for my own second episode just
Yeah,
so I
yeah.
can take a photo with it.
Well, it's just going to replace me soon.
Hey,
I'll just,
this is AI.
yeah,
This is AI.
that's it.
Yeah, cool. Okay, now tell us, Matt, what makes you so passionate about helping men to get stronger, leaner, and helping men to see the carryover of their performance increases in the gym carry over to bolstering their self-confidence? Okay, where did you start out at? Where are you at now? And why are you
Cool.
so passionate?
Awesome. So I'm pretty passionate about it because I like to help people who were in a, or are in a position that I once was. So I I like to help. That's why I got into the industry. And so for me, starting out, I was a little bit overweight as a kid. Like confidence was something that I always struggled with in terms of, being overweight. There's other kids that are not overweight. They just have that confidence in their body. And that was just never a thing for me. So I started training when I was about 12. And just because I was like, well, it's going to be able to do something to change that. I wanted to work out and change my body composition, feel more confident in that. And I've been training pretty much ever since. So nearly 20 years now, which is quite crazy.
Wow.
And made lots of mistakes in that time. And then also at the time was sort of starting to play rugby league. So I was the bigger kid. That kind of was one thing that made me a bit confident, I guess, is because I was a bit bigger. I could run into people and kind of get over the top of people. But still, like when it comes to like taking my shirt off and things like that, that was always like a massive insecurity for me for the longest time. And so I guess that's why that was a big thing why I got into training. And I
Mm,
like to see the carryover of the performance things for my sport or whatever it might have been for that, but ultimately it came back to confidence. And so that was a cool question that you asked me initially. It was like, what am I passionate about? And
mm,
confidence always comes up for me. And I've been thinking about it recently, and it's yeah, it's always a thing. So I like to help people, and along that time, I've obviously done a lot of education, a lot of practice, and helped a lot of people. And you know, health and fitness is my life, and we're us PTs who are
mm,
passionate in it. We're lucky enough to have our hobby be our job,
mhm,
which is really cool. Has its downsides sometimes. It's hard to switch off sometimes,
mhm,
but you know, that initially got me into it, and that's where I want to move towards as I go.
mhm,
But like as I said, I like to help people in the position that are in the position that I once was. And that's
mhm.
why, like when we started working together, I thought it was really, really cool that you were 17 and you started doing PT at the age that I was like, that's sick. I wish I could have started then.
Mm,
And that's what I'm passionate about as well, too, seeing, you know, being able to educate and kind of empower someone else to help make that change for other people, but also see that to carry over into whatever they're doing as well too, from like a PT education standpoint. But yeah, that's kind of where I started. Yeah, so I didn't say that I'm a country boy. So I'm originally from a town of about 3,000 people. So
mhm.
the gym that I work in has about 3,000 members.
Mm,
That's about the size of my town.
I
And then I
love
moved to Sydney because there was no one there to learn off. So
it. Mhm.
yeah, that's how I sort of ended up here in 2017. And then that was when you started working at Fitness Playground.
Mhm.
I started just after.
Cool. Who would you say if you could think to the first one of your first inspirations when you were beginning your fitness endeavor? yeah, your strength training endeavor. Who would you say is one of your first inspirations and why?
First inspirations and why. I guess I don't know. I don't know who I'd be able to say would be one of the first. I was kind of like of the generation where the I got a lot of information from YouTube
Mm-hmm.
when like the first kind of like fitness YouTubers were starting to come up.
Mm-hmm.
So there's one, I don't know if you know Athlean X. Do you know that?
Athlean X, yeah, I've heard of them.
Yeah, they were big back in the day, and it was kind of like one of the first ones that were a guy called Greg Cavalier, I think. I used to watch all his stuff because he was like a
Mm,
physical therapist, and this actually might come from lead towards how I kind of got into like helping people with injuries and things like that. Is
mm,
having like a bit more of a broader view, I guess, for lack of a better description, of like taking all things into account when it comes to health and fitness, because like personal training back then was probably not so much of a thing, and
mm,
there was, particularly when I was younger, for me anyway,
mm,
and I didn't have access to anybody from a face-to-face standpoint. So everything that I did was like watching videos, reading books, and online. So
mhm.
a couple of like, I think, yeah, Athlean X, and then there was a guy called Scott Herman, I think. Have you heard of that guy before? No, this is
No.
like it's
Mm,
15-ish years ago, probably,
yeah.
maybe more.
Mm,
And then there's another guy called Elliot Hulse, but the one that probably impacted most of my education would be Charles Poliquin,
yeah.
which like is quite well known in the industry. Obviously,
Mm.
he's not alive today, but that's kind
May
of where I
he
got.
rest in peace.
Yeah, and I actually had Mark Roper. Do you know who Mark Roper is?
Mhm.
Yeah, I had him on the podcast recently, and he's done a lot of face-to-face stuff with Charles back in the day. So it was really, really cool
Mm,
to get to chat to him about what it was like to be around that environment in person. But yeah, the biggest one that influenced a lot of the stuff that I do would be Charles Poliquin. And I used to read for a long time every single thing
mm,
that he wrote.
yeah.
And I guess that's where I got my foundation of knowledge.
Mhm.
Because I grew up in such a small town and started doing PT in a small town, I didn't have anybody else to learn off.
Mm,
So I would just spend hours and hours a week reading and researching.
mhm.
And yeah, that's kind of where that all come from. And that influences a lot of what I do today as well, too.
I love that. And I think it's so beautiful, like when you can absolutely nerd out at something that you're passionate about,
Yeah.
but absolutely still a decade on, still more than a decade on, still be so passionate about learning and refining your craft, sharpening your saw with the same sort of a thing.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Because
it's
we're
awesome.
so lucky in our industry that there is there's so many things that you can always, so many avenues that you can go down and get better at. You know,
Mm,
obviously there's what it is in its core. It's obviously training and nutrition.
mm,
How many avenues can you go down in each of those? It's like almost indefinite. The cool thing is that as you start to do more education, you start to realize that it comes back to a lot of key concepts and key principles,
mm-hmm,
which I think if someone gets better at their at coaching, hopefully they can start to realize that you need, have to have the key concepts around anatomy and movement,
mm-hmm,
principles of programming, exercise selection, and
mm-hmm,
all those sorts of things, and then coaching. And the same thing with nutrition as well too. There's a lot of different approaches, but they all ultimately will affect a couple key principles, concepts, or are using those sorts of things.
mm-hmm,
But then on the other side of it as well too, as personal trainers, we work with people. So
mm-hmm,
those principles and concepts are really, really good. They're the nuts and bolts of what we do. But, like how many different personality types of people do you work with
yeah.
on a day basis? And so then like my education in the last, I guess, couple years has been still training, but
Mm,
I'm always going to do the training stuff because that really, really excites me. But
mm-hmm,
looking at more like coaching and motivational interviewing and a bit more of the psychology behind it,
mm,
because yeah, like if you can't deal with people, you can have all the functional anatomy and knowledge and the strength and conditioning knowledge, but at
mm,
the end of the day, we deal with real people with real lives. So
mm-hmm,
I think there's so many things that we can continue to learn. Sometimes it's a little bit frustrating being like, shit, I've got more to learn,
mm-hmm.
but it means that there's more progression as well too.
Yeah, 100%. And I think it's something as a coach, when you've been in the industry for quite a few years, and again, you're fortunate enough that you enjoy what you do, so you keep refining it and progressing as a coach as well. You start to realize that even though there might be 1,000, sorry, let's not go hyperbole too soon, but hyperbole. Um, there might be like 100 different methodologies or like systems for training, or likewise for nutrition. But your ability to have that inventory in the back of your head, and then when you have a client with a particular personality type, a particular history, a particular injury, you can go into the archives, pull out that protocol, and be like, I think this protocol might actually really align with your life. And
Yeah,
then all of a sudden, this client who's seen 5, 10 PTs before, like everyone's given them, they've never had success, that sort of a thing, which happens a lot in our industry, where then people may come to us, and we're just fortunate enough that we've learned that one way of describing something and setting someone up, that all of a sudden they just get it and just succeed and progress forward. So I think that's, yeah, so important as a coach as well. That's what you
abs-
do.
yeah, absolutely. And I think it's one of those things as well. Like the more broad view you can have of it, the easier it is to critically think as well too. So it's kind of one of those things. You learn a little bit, you think you know everything, you learn a little bit more, you realize you know nothing. So then you
Mm-hmm.
keep learning, and everybody's. I know I have made mistakes as a PT. Where he's like, you should only do the exercise this way
Mm-hmm.
because I like this exercise, so therefore that exercise will be good for you. But then when
Mm-hmm.
you start to see like the differences between people and setting someone up on an exercise, like again, we take the principles into account, but having a more broader view of like everybody exercise is going to look a little bit differently. But as long as we've got some sort of key performance criteria that we tick, and then
Mm-hmm.
same side of it with like nutrition approaches as well too. Like I come from, not it's not been easy for me to get where I've got with my, in terms of physique goals and nutrition. And
Mm-hmm.
I've been really up and really down. Like I have had periods where I lost like 25 kilos
Mm-hmm.
and I got down to 65 kilos.
Well, and so you're tall as well. So how tall are you? Centimeters.
180, so just shy 6 foot. So at
Yeah.
20 years old, I went from 92 kilos to
Mm-hmm.
65 at the same height.
Yeah.
I was eating 1,300 calories a day,
Wow.
which is crazy, and I was training
Mm-hmm.
like twice a day as well too. So it was obviously disordered eating, and
Mm-hmm.
had a hard time with body image. So on that side of it, like I understand what that feels like. So if I ever I don't think everybody should have to go that far. And it was because I didn't have the knowledge. And
Mm-hmm.
one thing that I value as well is the more knowledge you have, the more power you have to change things, the more confidence it gives you.
Mm-hmm.
And, but I can, not the only person, but I know I can empathize with people being on that side of it as well, too, as well being on the very other side of it. So like I had lost 20 kilos to be able to lose 20 kilos. I had 20 kilos to lose or whatever it was. I didn't
Mm-hmm.
get too far with it. So I know what it's like to be skinny and weak,
Mm-hmm.
small, and
Mm-hmm.
also I know what it feels like to be, out of shape and fat as well too, and the ups and downs in that. And I think not everybody has to go through that experience, but it does give like a broader view and then more empathy when it comes to dealing with a client as well too. So
Mm-hmm.
I've sat down with people that have had eating disorders before or
Mm-hmm.
disorders of eating. Like I know what it feels like. I know what it feels like to be scared to eat you know, carbs. I know what it feels like to be scared to, eat more than 1,500 calories a day, which is crazy.
Mm-hmm.
But it's one of those things like as you get into it, particularly if you're doing it on your own as well too,
Mm-hmm.
I it's harder to see that you're making mistakes because there's no one else to help you. And, ideally
Mm-hmm.
what we do as coaches is we try to minimize the amount of mistakes that a client can make so they can be more successful in a shorter period of time.
Mm-hmm.
And that's like one of the things that I'm very passionate about is helping people achieve the same result that I got in a much shorter period of time, whether that
Yeah.
be from getting leaner and being more confident in yourself or be an injury standpoint. I always say that, I'm unfortunate, but also fortunate enough to be injured a lot more than the average person. And
Mm,
every injury that I've ever had has caused me to learn more about fixing an injury, more about anatomy, more about programming, more about exercise selection, which then the next client that comes along that might have a similar injury, I can fix that, you know,
mm,
in a week as opposed to a year or whatever it might be sometimes.
yeah.
And everything is then a lesson. And if I can make someone not have to go through those lessons after, however long,
Yeah.
that's good. That's valuable. Yeah. So that's kind of like
Mm,
why I love what I do is so much as well too.
I love that. Tell me, in terms of your disordered eating patterns, where you did drop quite a lot of weight and you're on like 1,300 calories, how did you break out of that?
It was probably not the best way because it was funny because at the time I could not see that I was as lean as I was.
Of course, that's
And
body dysmorphia.
yeah.
Yeah.
And because we chatted about it, when you're on my podcast with your prep, the
Mm,
things that go through your mind when you're trying to do that.
mm,
It's crazy. Hey, like I didn't see that I was that lean. So I had in my head that if I got to a certain level of body fat, then I could just increase my food and it'd be sweet.
mm,
So I did, and then obviously I ballooned out of it. And it was like after periods of up and down, up and down, up and down
mm,
for a long period of time that I guess it just kind of at that point I was fixated on tracking calories,
mm,
just being about the calories. And there was a long period of time where I couldn't track calories. And
mhm.
so I didn't because I would fixate on it too much.
Yeah.
So that was kind of, I guess I switched my approach that I then would look to more, the way that came out of it is I did like more of like a paleo style sort
Hmm.
of diet, which on average, I think if most people ate good quality protein, ate some
Hmm.
vegetables, ate some decent carbs, ate some fruit, it's a good diet, yeah.
Yeah.
So
Keep it simple, seriously.
that's the thing. But at the time, like I had this complex idea in my head that, it was, well, counting calories didn't work because it got me so far, or then when I had calories back in or whatever. So I just focus on, more of the whole foods or whatever it might be. And that kind of got me a long way.
Mm,
But there was like a long period of time where I still wasn't kind of where I wanted to be. I was out of that state of being disordered eating, not eating enough,
hmm.
eating enough, but still not kind of where I wanted to be from a body composition standpoint.
Yeah.
So then as I studied more of nutrition, come back around, took a more sensible approach to tracking and
Mm,
measuring and managing calories, and that's kind
hmm.
of how I got. So my base of my diet would be, I think that's a good diet, yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
you know, because it was also at a time there was two. It was around the time when there was like the if it fits your macros was starting to take off,
Hmm.
and again, same thing. If you use the principles, yes, that's a really really good way to do it. Use the
Mm,
principles from like something like a paleo diet, also an excellent, really good way to do it. Can we maybe bring those two things together and have a more sensible and balanced approach? And that's kind
hmm.
of where most people should sit most of the time. But because I was on the one side of it where I did track everything and couldn't see that I got success,
Hmm.
I went so far on the other side of it. And then when you see the people talking about that, if it fits your macros, I was like, well, it doesn't work because when I added those foods back in,
Mm,
that caused me to gain weight. When in reality, we know it's an overconsumption of calories more than anything.
yeah.
But I couldn't differentiate between the two for a long period of time.
Mm,
And then in between that, there was definitely it was also around the time when the cheat meals and the cheat days were very much a big thing as well too.
yeah.
So there'd be like periods of
Mm,
restriction, periods of
mm.
gorging, periods of restriction, periods of gorging.
Yeah. If that ain't a binge and restrict cycle, a cheat day.
I know,
Yeah.
I know.
Mm.
Good fun for a period of time. And you're like, what are you doing it for?
Exactly.
And
Tell
so
me,
thankfully I don't do that anymore.
yeah. Tell me, thank you for sharing that. With nailing the basics, okay, so obviously like paleo and to a degree we still need things to fit your macros.
Yeah.
Yeah. Where do you find when males come to you and they may be in a similar position that you were in terms of sort of wanting to build their confidence, maybe having gone to extreme measures in an effort to contort their body to do so? where do males tend to draw their attention to when it comes to creating a healthier lifestyle? And what sort of big rocks do you redirect those clients to so that they can actually start reaping the rewards of all the effort they're putting in?
So I think it's one of those things that I was having a conversation about it yesterday, and on my podcast with Andy Bolton.
Mm-hmm.
He raised a really, really good point, and he called it nutritional literacy, and I really, really like that. And
Mm-hmm.
so I think like a lot of times people, they're kind of, for lack of a better description, a little bit illiterate when it comes to nutrition.
Mm-hmm.
There's so much information out there that there's a lot of good information, but oftentimes there's a lot of like conflicting information, and people can kind of get caught up on, I'm eating clean, or, then they have like very similar patterns to kind of what I was. Like I would eat clean and then
Mm-hmm.
have the cheat days.
Ah.
Yeah. And, like I think everybody's been there at a point.
Mm.
And so I think it's that like, and then it's really, really easy to then demonize foods and, oh, I can't eat this, I can't eat that. And so sitting in the middle when you have what I try to do in terms of like the big rocks that I get people to focus on, I I think understanding energy balance first and foremost makes a massive, massive difference.
Mm.
Understanding calories and the way that I think about it, it's like if we're trying to save money and we don't acknowledge that a dollar is the currency that we're saving, it's kind of a little bit silly. Like I want to
Mm.
save some of this thing that has value, but I'm not going
Mm.
to acknowledge what it is at its core. It's a dollar.
Yeah.
I'm going to save
Mm.
that. And so we know that with calories, it's not, it's not an exact perfect thing in terms of how they get the quantities of calories. Our body doesn't work like a bomb calorimeter. It doesn't burn energy
Mm.
to raise, was it 1 gram of water or something?
Yeah. Yeah.
You know,
Mm.
but it has potential energy in that. So we just have like this agreed upon idea that there's calories in food and we should probably just acknowledge them. So once
Mm.
we can understand that, the way that I think about it is we have that knowledge. That knowledge then gives us so much more power to
Mm-hmm.
then deal with certain situations where we're eating food that is not quote unquote normal or quote unquote healthy. And so that's where I think that if it fits your macros approach does come into it, yeah.
Mm.
Because it's good to have pizza, it's good to have ice cream, it's good to have whatever it might be. Or even if it's something like alcohol with people,
Mm.
and if we can just acknowledge that, okay, we do have a pretty objective measure for the potential energy in food,
Mm-hmm.
and just take that as that's what it is. We don't need to tie any emotions to it, which I've been on that other side of it, tying
Yeah.
emotions to it. And then once we have that information, we can then implement that where need be. So it's hard to, I know then it can be a bit more of a, for some people, understanding getting, they can get caught up in the calories too much, and it's not all
Mm.
about that. But we do know that it's a thing, so we might as well just have a better understanding around it. And I think
Mm.
early on, once people can understand that it's not necessarily permission to just eat shit, but we
Mm.
understand that cool, if we can understand calories, we know that we can make more informed decisions with our
Mm-hmm.
food moving forward. If we and I use it as an education tool to
Mm-hmm.
again give people more power. Then from there, looking at protein, looking at carbohydrates, and looking at fats. In as most of us do, we have clients that want to build a little bit more muscle mass, so we get them to focus on protein first and foremost, and then
Mm-hmm.
looking at the carbohydrates and looking at the fats. I don't get super super complex with it past that point
Mm-hmm.
because unless someone wants to do a crazy big transformation, because then it doesn't that's where it can go super far down that rabbit hole of
Yeah.
for most people, if you're not doing a show, you're not doing a photo shoot,
Mm.
you probably don't need to obsess over it so much. I
Yeah.
think more knowledge around the area, having more literacy around it, being nutritionally literate will make a big, big
Mm.
difference for most people.
Yeah, I love that. And there's a term that in on my side of the healing your relationship with food industry, more with my cheeky babes, that I have at the moment. There's a little term that's very similar to nutritional literacy, and there's intuitive eating and there's informed eating.
I like that. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's similar sort of a concept where it's like there is eating what you feel like, which is intuitive.
Yeah.
And then there's eating to a degree what you feel like, but then also appreciating that food has value, like that dollar that you're tracking to budget.
Yeah.
It's like food has not only caloric value, but we can see everything we eat is either a deposit or a withdrawal to our health account when we're speaking budget, speaking numbers, right? And so it's like if we can make more choices where we're building up our health account, that's always better. But then teaching someone how simple that can be as well, that's cool. And that sounds like, so that's what you do when a male comes to you and they're typically quite doing quite weird stuff like trying to cut out carbs or going keto or that sort of a thing. It's like, bro, simplify it.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like, have
Mm,
a few key principles to fall back on, and the rest of
mm,
it falls in place. And like a big thing for me as well too. Like, I love the body composition side of it, but I also do like the performance side of it. And I think from
mm,
like a health standpoint, having having that understanding of nutrition. But then when we train, like I want to train to be able to do cool stuff. So
mm.
like there's no reason for me to squat other than I just think it's cool and I like it and I want to have a big squat.
That's
You get,
it.
and it's cool, like having
Mm,
like the ability to do athletic stuff. Like if you want to be able to run and you want to be able to,
mm,
for me, it's like riding mountain bikes. I really like doing
mm,
and using things as like the element, like the concept, I guess, is like using our training as for performance
mhm.
to elicit that body composition results. Because I don't have anything against bodybuilding, but it can get a little bit boring at a point as well. If
Yeah,
you're just focusing on
yeah.
aesthetics,
Mm,
but like trying to improve your 6 rep max on a back squat, doing that really, really good and like mastering
mm.
the technique, you're going to get bigger quads doing that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
ultimately, you're going to get the bodybuilding benefits from that still.
Yeah. And it might not be the fastest way to do it, but it's a
Mm,
little bit more of an engaging way. Or it might
mm,
be a deadlift or a bench press or, those exercises, like those big compound movements that I just vibe with. Like when I sort of started coming up, I used to read like a lot of old school strongman training books as well
yeah.
too. And it's just like good hard training is just so cool.
Mm, mm,
I used to do like nerd and geek out on like some of the biomechanics stuff and,
mm,
making something more optimal, that's excellent. But then how can we make it optimal and then just put that into your deadlift or your bench press or your
yeah,
pull up or whatever it might be? Because
exactly.
like banging out 20 pull-ups is
Mm,
so much cooler than like a, lat pull down variation on a
mm,
cable on a spot or on a bench,
mm,
you know. And so like to come back to it is to be able to do those things, we need to be able to fuel that training.
mm,
So we have no concept of what carbohydrates do, how we're going to fuel that training.
mhm,
Most muscle contractions are going to be, well, muscle contractions with high intensity exercise is
mm.
going to be very dependent
Period.
on,
Glycolytic.
yeah, yeah, glycolytic, yeah.
Yeah.
And so it, if we do low carb, yeah, you'll lose some body
Mm,
weight. You're going to feel like shit. So maybe let's
mm,
just have some carbohydrates in there and we'll account for calories and then you won't feel like shit and you can do the 20 pull-ups. Because
that's it.
that's where once people understand those principles, it just opens up so much more freedom. And the same thing with
Mhm,
training as well too, if we got really, really good basics, we've got good squats, good deadlifts, good pull-ups, good dumbbell incline press, good dumbbell bench press, whatever it might be.
mm,
That's the recipe, yeah. Do those
mhm.
really, really good, prove the performance on it,
Yeah.
and people will probably see the results they want in a shorter period of time as well.
Exactly, exactly. I love that. Tell me, in terms of, I guess, when it comes to, so we've got the basics down pat and doing the basics really well from a nutrition standpoint and a training standpoint. It's like ideally you should be aiming to perform better, and performing better is really a few key principles. Does that sort of,
Yeah,
is
yeah,
that
for
nice
sure.
way to simplify it?
Yeah.
I love that. Is that an energy drink? No, it's a water bottle. Good.
No, that's my
I was
one.
about to
But
be like,
yes, it
Matt,
gets
it's
lots
too
of
late.
energy. Lots of energy on it.
Yeah. Now, tell me, in terms of building self-confidence, what are the blueprints and systems you use for yourself and your male clients, or what have you used in the past to help them and yourself build and bring to life the best version of you or themselves?
Yeah, so I think it's one of those things like I don't it's probably a little bit different for males than it is for females. And
The stage is yours.
yeah, so I guess like guys, I think once we have like the knowledge around those things, and that's what like I'm big on knowledge because I guess the things that I was thinking about when I was thinking about confidence, like what is confidence? And
Mm,
there's a lot to do with having knowledge around something. You'll be more confident if you have the knowledge. If you don't know, you're probably not going to be confident. If you think of it like studying for a test, if you didn't
mm,
study for the test and you didn't go to the classes, you're probably not going to be confident, you know, in getting a good grade.
mhm,
And but if you had the knowledge, then even if you don't know what that test is going to be, you're probably going to be a little bit more confident.
mhm,
So having the knowledge, and then the preparation, the practice is the thing as well too. So we can have that knowledge, but until we put that knowledge into practice and the preparation, we're probably not going to see the result. So I
mm,
guess that's the big thing, because I've had clients before and they just don't know what they need to do to get the result, and that's obviously why we do what we do, is to help people with that. And
mm,
because they're unsure about it, and they might have had time where they have been practicing something, but it's just been a little bit off.
mhm,
Or, they might have been practicing something with their nutrition, they're eating healthy and doing no carb.
mm,
It's good, well, and it's the intent behind it is really, really good, but it's just that little bit off. And it's like kind of optimizing those things and giving people the knowledge will allow them to put the things into practice,
mm,
and then seeing that carry over to their confidence as well too. So how someone will walk and carry themselves into the gym is a big thing for me. Like, you see, when people start to get results, they come into the gym and they're more excited to come into the gym. Not
mm,
always, but how they just kind of carry themselves. They stand a little bit taller. They got a little bit more muscle mass. When they start to, you get a guy that doesn't usually wear a singlet, and then he wears a singlet because he's like,
mm.
I've got some veins in my arms,
Yeah, check
and I'm
out these
starting to feel a little more
arms.
jacked. And that's cool. Like, acknowledge that.
Mm,
And so that's kind of where I I like to see it, just like that process start to go into place. And then a big thing as well is, I guess, it's acknowledging their wins for them as well.
mm,
Particularly for guys, it's really easy to be like, oh, it's just because whatever, like it's not actually a thing. I'm like, no, you did that thing. That's cool. You should be confident in that. You put the
mm,
work in. You know, if they start to see some lines on the shoulders, oh, it's just kind of like the lighting. I was like, no, it's not the lighting. Like, you're getting
mm.
leaner, you're getting stronger, you're building more muscle mass. And I guess it's like being a little bit more of a hype squad and acknowledging it, because it's very easy to be like,
Yeah,
chalk it up to be like, oh, whatever, whatever it might be. And I think that's the thing where I always try to, we either win or we learn from something.
that's it.
And so
Yeah.
it's like, that's where we're at. Like, and even when we're learning, that's a good thing. So if we did
Mm,
make a mistake, not to kind of celebrate it, but just like, cool, we got that insight now, we got
mhm,
the information, we have more knowledge now. Let's put that into practice and move forward with it.
mhm.
Because it's very easy to go in the opposite direction as well too. And particularly
Yeah.
when someone's tried things in the past that may not have got them success, it can be discouraging as well too. And that can really quickly go in the way of someone not being confident in what they're doing
Mhm,
as well. So that's kind of like putting the plan in place, getting them to see that it will start to work, and then even just highlighting things where people say, oh, like someone noticed, like I'm looking a little bit more jacked today,
mm.
like fuck yeah, that's cool. Sorry to
Yeah.
swear, but like that's cool, because acknowledge that
Mm.
it's not all about those things. But I think sometimes people don't want to acknowledge the vanity of it in a way.
Yes. Mhm.
But aesthetics and vanity is part of being a human. It's not all of it,
Yeah.
but it is, yeah.
Yeah.
And so it's like just acknowledging that for what it is. It's like that makes us feel good. That makes us feel a bit more confident. Seeing someone make the change, and then like when you get like a really really cool transformation photo, and you
Mm.
kind of just see in that person's face like when they're different people. I think that's a
Mm.
cool thing as well. Just seeing like that person looks more confident now. That's
Mm.
it's showing them that photo as well too, and then they're like, I never thought that I could ever make that change,
Yeah.
which is really, really cool. Because that was me. I never
Mm.
thought that I would ever have abs,
Yeah.
have veins on my abs, or whatever it might be.
Mm.
So it's really, really cool to see that transformation with someone.
I love that. Yeah, I think it's so beautiful when someone takes full ownership for like accelerating the ship. It's like you can give someone a map as a coach, but like at the end of the day, they have to choose to steer on that map and they have to choose to accelerate the ship.
Yeah.
Right. And you can see the difference between transformational photos or even just progress photos. And you can see someone's first photo where they might be looking like face wise. We're not even talking anything about the body, but face wise, like disheartened. Oh, I guess we've got to take this photo. And then, like, and I personally have a few clients who they'll be like, when can we take photos next?
Yeah.
And I'm like, calm down. We
Yeah.
can take them as much as you want. It's okay. But they're like, cool, can I see my photos? Can we compare them?
Yeah.
And it's what identity did you have to let go of to become the version of yourself that you are now? And that's what people with building that self-confidence, it's you're letting go of that version of you who isn't confident for XYZ reason, holding on to those BTS sort of behind the scenes reels of what you see that no one else sees.
Yeah.
You're letting go of that and you're being like, I'm stepping into this identity.
Yeah.
So I love that.
And that's a big thing as well too. And like you see where people struggle with, and it is a lot that identity as well too, is making that change to like I don't push all my clients to do like that transformation because it takes quite a while to get to that point to actually start that 12-week transformation that you see people like I know I've had many starts and stops with it. And what was I saying there? The identity. So
Yeah.
it challenges your identity, as you move on with it, and you can see people start to self-sabotage themselves because it does start to challenge their identity of
Yes.
what they look and they feel like, and so that's like one thing I try to get my clients to, like in terms of wording of things, if there is someone that's, let's say they're trying to do something like they're working on the plan, and let's say that's coming to the gym 4 times a week or whatever it is. You just that in itself of like, I'm going to try to come to the gym 4 times next week. That's good. That means well, but when you say try, you're not going to be that person that's going to come to the gym 4 times a week because you're trying to, which is good.
Yes.
But if you go, I'm coming to the gym 4 times next week, and it's definite. And then you start to stack up those, those little sayings that make a big difference of how we hold ourselves and what we think about ourselves. Because it's really easy for that try to come 4 times a week to be 2. If you start to become the person that says, I'm going to go to the gym 4 times a week, or I go to the gym 4 times a week, you're identifying as that person who goes to the gym 4 times a week. We see it with people who, I'm always the person that's super late. Always the person that's super late.
Yeah.
And I know it's such a simple little thing, but just being like clear and concise and definite with what you say with the plan. And if the plan doesn't go to plan, that's fine. Again, we either win or we get that lesson. Cool. What was the lesson from that? Managing someone, like helping someone with their schedule. You have someone that's like, I must come to the gym, 4 times a week, and it has to be 6 a.m. on those, like all those days. I'm like, cool, awesome. That's a really, really good time. But if there's one day out of that week that they continually miss because they've got other engagements on the day before that don't make that day a good day to come to the gym, we now have that lesson. We now have that insight. Don't plan to come to the gym on that day.
Yeah.
And do it on another day. And then you still get your 4 in, but it doesn't have to be on that. But I always try to chalk it up as a win. And I guess that comes from me being injured so much. I'm injured. This sucks. How can I get better from it?
Yeah.
Because
100%.
otherwise it can really negatively spiral in the other direction as well, which is not going to be conducive to someone getting confident.
Exactly. Yeah. And I think it's something like one quote that was just repeating as you were speaking to me is like, when people say like knowledge is power, or it's like, oh, I just don't know what I'm doing in the gym or whatever else. It's like knowledge is power to a degree, but it's like, what are you actually going to do about it? Like, how are you actually going to show up as the version of you who does train 4 times a week? Because that's who you want to be. That's who you're stepping into. So yeah, so I love that. Tell me, in terms of 3 non-negotiables for the week that help you act in alignment with that highest version of yourself, what would they be for you? I'm assuming training may be one.
Training is one. Yeah. So absolutely, definitely training. For me, probably one of the biggest things that particularly this kind of goes along the line of like the planning of the week for a client.
Mm.
It's literally that, like being in control over my time. And, our job is helping people and giving to people. So it's very easy to be focused on other people and like other
Mm.
people's sessions. So one thing for me is just been sort of taking control back of my time. So I still obviously do all my sessions, but instead of it being, at days and times that I might just like, oh, just yeah, we'll do one there, one off, and whatever it might be,
Mm.
within reason. And I guess it's the keeping commitments to yourself. That's what it is. And
Mm-hmm.
so I'm keeping the commitment to myself of being pretty strict with my schedule, lenient where I need to be, but of
Mm-hmm.
like, cool, these are the days that I'm doing this, so I can set myself up for a better week and be able to do the things that I want. And I think for a lot of people, it's a big one as well too, because like life gets in the way
Mm.
really, really fast as well too.
Yeah.
Sometimes as a PT, when you go through a period where you are busy, we work in a gym, but not always does a session get done for you as well.
Yeah.
You know,
Oh my God, 100%. Many
yeah,
times over the years.
yeah, that's the thing, and particularly when you're starting out as well. For if
Mm.
you think back to when the glory days of FP, how many sessions a week you would do,
Yeah.
and you're like, shit,
Mm.
I don't have any time to train. Then there's sometimes
Mm.
that you'll train 3 times a day, and then
Oh, exactly. Yeah. It's
and then
all
end up
going
in.
back and forth.
Yeah, so the big thing for me is like keeping those commitments to myself,
Mm.
and that's whatever it might be with my training.
Mm.
Definitely keeping training in there makes me feel a lot better
Mm.
about everything,
Mm.
and I think that's quite a consistent theme across PTs as well too.
Mm.
And keeping commitments, keeping my training in there, and prioritizing time to myself, and they kind of all go hand in hand as well too. Like
Mhm.
I learned a good thing actually from the book, the book Seven Habits of Highly Effective People.
Ah,
Yeah.
love that book.
Yeah, I've been reading it because I
Yeah.
listened to, I think it was your first podcast, and
Mm.
you mentioned it, and I was
Mm.
I've bought it before, but I bought it on Kindle, so
Yeah.
it's just kind of not a Kindle book. You need to kind of
Mm.
be able to flip.
It's a textbook. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
which I
Mm.
really do vibe a textbook,
Mm.
and
We're not nerdy. I swear
yeah, not nerdy, not
we have
nerdy.
other passions.
Yeah, not nerdy at all.
Mm.
I have many a textbooks at home,
Mm. Yeah.
and the thing that it was the in terms of prioritizing time for myself, that's where I was going.
Yeah. Time for
So
yourself.
we spend most of our week giving to people, which is excellent. And
Hmm.
it's really, really easy to get caught up in constantly doing work because our hobby is our work and our passion,
Hmm.
all those sorts of things. And so for me, I'm really, really introverted by nature.
Mm.
Most people wouldn't understand that if they see me in the gym. Like, oh, you talk
Mm.
to people all day. I'm like, yeah, that's my job.
And then you sign off and it's like,
Yeah,
no one speak to me.
yeah, yeah. No one speak to me. Yeah.
Mm.
And so having time to myself, and the point from the book is he used an example, and I don't even know if this was the example, but he or the point of the example, but he was talking about where he come home for his daughter's birthday party, and I think she was 7. She just got given some toys,
Mm.
and she was sitting in the corner screaming because she wouldn't share the toys with the kids. And so he
Hmm.
kind of went over there and he's like, you should share, but all these reasons, X, Y, Z. And then he ended up just exerting power, taking the toys and allowing the kids to share.
Yeah.
Then his reflection was, most people do want to share. Most people do kind of want to help and they want to give
Mm.
time, whatever it might be in whichever way.
Mm.
But it's hard to share something that you don't yet possess.
Mm.
And in that instance of her with the toys, no doubt naturally she probably would have shared her toys after a period of time of her being like, these are my new toys. I've
Hmm.
possessed these toys now. Do you want to try my toys as well?
Hmm.
And I think for me, it was a realization of like, for my time as well too, because I give a lot of it. Obviously, I get paid to give a lot of the time, but it's a lot of time for other people.
Mm.
And so if I don't end up having my own time throughout the week, I end up feeling signs of more stress, feel more
Mm.
anxiety, feel not happy, and things like that. And that kind of goes into the lines of like keeping the commitments to myself, keeping the commitment to train when I said, and
Hmm.
prioritizing the time for myself so I can then give more abundantly to the people that I do help as well too. I
Mm.
do like to help a lot when I do help.
Yeah, I love that. And it's so true. I always notice personally for myself, if I'm giving a lot of time to work commitments and not giving anything back to myself, the moment a client might cancel a session or miss a call, like my ego is offended.
Yeah, yeah,
And it's a step back where it's this person, they had something come up, like it's literally it's a call or it's a face-to-face session where someone's sick or someone's slept in, and it's you instantly, you're like, this is a disrespect to my
yeah,
business and my time. And it's like, girl, you need to go take yourself out so you can stop having the ego sort of rule your emotions,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
Mm,
I've actually, that's a really, really good point because I've realized that
mm,
recently. I've been trying to put more effort into my work and
mm,
noticing when clients are turning up late in particular is been
yeah.
that's been getting to me. And then
Mm,
I realized this week because
mm,
I worked on Saturday and I worked on Sunday, just like
mm,
business stuff,
yeah.
admin, whatever it might be. Then worked on Monday, then throughout the week,
Mm.
and I've been more irritable with that. So I apologize to any of my clients if
Anyone listening right now, we're sorry.
I don't outwardly show it. I'm
Mm,
good at
yeah.
putting that on, but that's
Yeah.
actually a really, really good point that
Mm,
when you do feel like that bit overworked
mm,
and haven't had enough time for yourself, that it is kind of a bit of a hit to the ego, and you're like, how are
mm.
you wasting my time like that?
Yeah, yeah, and it's something, it's whenever we feel that stress that comes up because we have been pouring from our cup a little bit more than what we obviously want to, but it's that sort of obligatory pouring, which I know a lot of people can relate with relationships, work, and family as well. It's something where that trigger that someone else has lit up is a sign that there is something inside us that we haven't been authentic with ourselves with. So it's like your first non-negotiable was keeping commitments with yourself.
Yeah,
And it's like, where have you told yourself you were going to do something and instead you were like, oh no, you know what, I'm going to do this work task instead.
yeah,
And then the next person in line who hasn't done XYZ of their half of the bargain when it comes to coaching, that sort of a thing, all of a sudden it's like they're the villain. When really it was, if we take it back a few steps, it's like you should have taken that hour break for lunch when you said you were going to, so you could actually recharge and be more on, engaged, present, and compassionate as well to yourself and clients in that second half of the day.
yeah, yeah. And that's the thing. Like we owe it to ourselves first and foremost, but everybody else around us as well too.
Mm,
And like one thing when I get clients to start out, like part of my onboarding is like getting them to get clear and set the times that they are going to train. Obviously, it's
mm,
not going to happen every single time, but I've done it for myself. I try to kind of get on top of it and do it quarterly because as your schedule kind of changes, inevitably
mm,
come in and out, and like plan out what my week would look like and lock those times in for myself. So I have
mm,
done it before, and then inevitably, like things just kind of slip, and then all of a sudden, like I'm not training, and or not training, but not training for what how I
mm.
consider training. Then
Yeah.
I don't feel really really good when I'm in a gym helping people train, and I can't train myself. So
Mm,
like, well, if I just block those times out, I have to be a little bit more strict, and maybe it might change someone else's schedule, like in terms of like they might have preferred a 2 p.m. slot, but like I'm training then.
hmm
My training in that time that I've blocked it out is very important because that's going to allow me to help those other people and help
hmm
that person that might have missed out on that time. Because again, like, and that goes for anybody else as well too. If it's important for you to go to the gym, but you don't see that you have the time, or like things get in the way or whatever it might be. But if you haven't actually like etched out that time and gone, cool, this goes in first,
mm,
and then the other things can go in around it. It doesn't always perfectly work out that way.
hmm
For instance, like I should be training now, but we're doing this, which is good fun. but it is obviously valuable as well too. It's like I wanted to do
mm,
this. It's not like I
mm,
wasn't resenting it, but it's like there is things that do change, and that's also completely fine. Like
hmm
it's like cool, a win or a lesson. That's sweet. We can move forward with that.
Yeah.
So like prioritizing those big things. For someone that's got a really really busy job and a family,
Mm,
an hour in the gym a couple of days a week, having that time for themselves to feel good about themselves, do the thing that's going to help them get more energy, be able to, be more physically active with whatever they're doing.
Mm,
will be very valuable long term. On the flip side of it, if you don't have that, you feel like a bit of a slave to everything else pulling you in every other different direction.
mm,
I notice that sometimes for myself, like most PTs, have like 20 to 40 clients, a lot of people to look after, a lot of
mm.
people's other training to look after. And it can really easy get to periods of time where you're like, everybody else is doing the thing and I don't feel like I'm doing the thing for me.
Yeah.
And it's like, we're here to enjoy the process and help people and whatever it might be.
Mm.
But we've got to be able to prioritize actually enjoying the things that we want to do, which is a really, really big thing.
Yeah. And I feel like one thing, and we've both been in the industry for a very similar amount of time, feel a bit like a dinosaur next to these new BPTs that come in
Yeah,
the gym
no.
now. But I feel like something that rings true for every extra, like additional year still coaching, um, is that the more that you do choose to make those like time block commitments for yourself, the more that you start to attract clients who respect your time more, and will also invest more from a business perspective, from a cost perspective, will invest more because they value your time and your expertise more. But then they also value your coaching and you as an individual because you have the boundaries set in place where you're like, if I don't fill up my cup, I can't adequately fill yours. Likewise, you're paying me to teach you how to fill your cup up better.
Yeah,
You're paying me to teach you how to fill your cup up more efficiently, or whatever XYZ when it comes to achieving your goal. Yeah, the coach is there. We can give you the map, we can give you the support, the accountability. And it's like, who are we to give you all of that support and accountability if for ourselves, we're constantly letting ourselves down?
yeah.
And so the clients you attract, I feel, as the years go on, so many more clients are aligned with the goal of being like, I'm serious now. I want to look after myself because they see you being like, I'm serious now. I want to look after myself.
And that's the thing. Like, if you want to be taken seriously, you have to take yourself seriously first and foremost,
Mm-hmm.
within reason. I don't take myself too
I,
seriously.
I said and I was like,
but but in terms of like, we take we take what we do seriously, and we take
mm,
the things that are involved with what we do. We take our education seriously, we take our time seriously, we
mm,
take our the knowledge and value that we can give a client seriously as well too.
mm-hmm,
And part of that is showing up for yourself, like you just said.
mm.
We we're not perfect as personal trainers. I think sometimes people can kind of think of like, oh, it's always been easy for you, whatever it might be.
Yes, it's good because you love fitness. It's
Yeah,
like, I
yeah,
also love my couch.
yeah, it's great. Yeah. I do
Yeah,
not love getting up at 4:30 a.m. and I've been
yeah,
doing that for the last decade.
yeah.
I do
Now my body clock just automatically does it, or
like,
I would change it.
yeah, I do like to sleep
Mm.
in a little bit, not a
Mhm.
crazy sleep in, but yeah,
Yeah.
it it's all challenges. And
Mm,
yeah, absolutely. Like for me, I've not found like, yeah, I find the process enjoyable of
mm,
improvement, because it's one thing where I was going before I go to that. The We need to lead from the front. We need to be that North Star as
exactly.
well too. So
Yeah.
we're not perfect. We do have our imperfections, and it's like we do mess up with our nutrition sometimes, like whatever it
Mm,
might be. Like, albeit it's not potentially the same as a client would.
mm,
Like sometimes, we're human. We have the fuck it moments. We
mm.
still do all the things. We might go to bed a little bit later, whatever it might be. But it is, for the most part, we have to, for us to be in shape and be that North Star, we have to be able to train. We have to prioritize that. The same as we take their training, seriously
Yes.
as well too. Because
Mm.
I, I, I'm in the business of helping people, and I want to see people get in shape and better
Yeah.
shape than they thought was possible.
Mm.
And I can't remember what else I was going to say there. So
So good. Yeah, I think, and it's something that's so beautiful with coaching. This has been such a wholesome conversation, but it's so beautiful with coaching. I feel like when your clients, and I was just thinking of this when you were talking about helping people, when your clients doubt themselves and you are able to create a space to reassure them and support them that you're not giving up on them.
yeah,
Like the amount of sessions and clients I have who say, I must be your worst client. And it's like, no, there is no worst client.
Yeah.
Like there are definitely, if you're canceling all the time, it gets annoying.
Yeah.
But it's like at the end of the day, your goals and your ruthless pursuit to not give up on them, even though you might fall down 1,000 times, stand up 1,001.
Yeah.
It's like what matters is your continual effort as a client and your continual effort as anyone listening who is someone who trains in general or is working on their nutrition, is it's like your pursuit to not give up on yourself, even when that means experiencing and learning when we're not winning.
Yeah.
Your choice to see that as a pursuit and an ongoing journey is beautiful. And I love how we get to create that space with people where they can leave a session and be believing in themselves again as well.
Absolutely, and that's the thing. Like we're in it for the long game. Like I don't plan to ever stop doing what I'm
Right.
doing. Like it'll probably change in some capacity, but
Mm-hmm.
like I want to be able to be physically active until how
Mm-hmm.
the day I die. And it's like those periods of you know the periods of like maintenance where you're probably not improving so much, we can still chalk them up to be a positive. Like if someone
Mm-hmm.
might not be improving, but they've turned up for the gym again and again and again
Mm-hmm.
and again, like that's a win as it goes.
Yeah.
Not to be like too, there is times where you probably need to push harder or whatever it is. It's
Yeah.
relative to every other person. And what's hard for me will be different to what's hard for you, and what's hard for XYZ client. It doesn't matter as long
Mm.
as someone is continuing in that trajectory
Mm.
and keeping things in motion, because again, like it's really easy to go in the opposite direction. Like
Mm.
I've had periods like with my business where I've like kind of slowed and got discouraged or whatever it might be, but
Mm-hmm.
I always say like I might slow but I won't stop, because if we don't
Yeah.
stop, it's easier to pick up momentum again,
Mm-hmm.
and then the whole thing's a lot easier. But if you have periods where you're just like, cool, that's it, it's done,
Mm.
getting started again is so much harder,
Yeah. Yeah.
which probably just keeps us turning up again and again and again. But
Mm-hmm.
we'll be able to do it for long periods of time, and that's kind of the goal, yeah, because time's going to pass anyway, so we might as well fill it with something meaningful.
That's it. And it doesn't matter how slow you go as long as you don't stop. I think Confucius said that. And it's definitely applicable. Tell
Uh,
me, Matt, if someone's listening right now and they're feeling overwhelmed and they know they're ready to embark on this journey to do things properly, okay, to get rid of the all or nothing sort of mindset or the crazy, like cutting out carbs, whatever else, but they're feeling overwhelmed and unsure where to start, what's something you would say to them?
a little bit biased, but get a good coach. Like it doesn't even need to be me. Get a good coach that focuses on the basics, or find someone that you vibe with. And there's so much information out there with social
Mm.
media,
Hmm.
and just kind of like maybe not look for like the buzzword stuff and like the stuff that gets
Mm.
the algorithm going, and like find people that are genuine in what they're doing.
Mm.
One thing that I want to do with my podcast is showcase a lot of other people that have similar thought processes around what they do, and promote, health and fitness and the principles of things. And then, yeah, just trying to get a start. Like all of it counts. I think
Mm.
sometimes people can chalk up stuff like, oh, it's like it doesn't count that, it's only this. Like all of it counts, whatever it might be. If that's you just turn up to the gym and you train arms every single day or whatever it might be.
Mm.
That counts to get you into the gym. Or if
Mm.
you turn up to the gym and you're not super super motivated or whatever it is, or you think about not going, try to stack up a win. And I guess think of things as like lessons, or we win or we learn something, because
Mm.
if we can have that mindset, then we're probably going to move forward at least
Mm.
at some point. But yeah, like I guess, yeah, either a coach or find someone that you vibe with on social media, and try to take note of what they say, because for the most part, there's a lot of good PTs out there that really, really
Mm.
want to help people and provide so much value on
Mm.
social media, because that's kind of what the game is now. We need to give everything away.
That's it. Yeah, everything away for free, and then be like, but when you come to coaching, there's more,
Yeah, wait, there's
and
more.
it's tailored to you.
Yeah, and that's a thing as well too. So, you know, I know it's living in Sydney. If you're paying Sydney rents, it's hard to do PT now as well
Mm.
too. But you
Mm.
can find someone that you vibe with, and they're pretty genuine, and they look like they want to help, and they focus on good basic things. Like they're not trying to sell you like the next trick or the next,
Mm,
because if you focus on the basics, there is a lot of complexities in it, but
mm,
also it's not that complex as well.
yeah.
Like if we look at what most people need to do, be decently active, get some decent amount of steps per day, 5 to 10,000. That's going to improve a lot of people's health. There,
Mm,
you're already not doing that. Learn to understand like what good nutrition is and like the basics of it, which
mm,
can be super complex, but also
mhm.
doesn't have to be. And then learn to look for a reputable source to learn how to train pretty effectively as well too.
Yeah.
Stack those things up and be patient because it doesn't happen overnight,
Hmm.
and work to be consistent with it and do it for a long period of time
Mm,
because that will serve most people well in the long term.
yeah. I love that. Well, Mr. Ultimate Strength and Conditioning, Matt Walsh, it's been an absolute pleasure. Where can we find you?
You can find me at mattwalsh.usc on Instagram,
Hmm.
or you can find my podcast, which is not as big as this podcast,
Hey, hey, no, no.
Conversations. You can go to volume number, let's have a look, volume number,
You're scrolling. You got so many episodes now. It's so good. So proud of you. Look, it
volume
doesn't
number,
matter.
volume number 9. That's the most valuable one.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Who's on that episode?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
That was a good one. All,
Cool.
all of them are good. That was good as well too.
Thank you. Well, thanks everyone so much, and we will catch you on the next episode.
See ya.